Sunday dinners were always Daniel's stage. I had just placed the dessert in front of everyone when my husband lifted a spoonful, tasted it, and he looked around the table before looking at me. Even the dog could do better. Room exploded with laughter. His sister covered her mouth, pretending she wasn't laughing. His father chuckled into his coffee. "H.O. Daniel," she said. "You always tell it like it is." Then she looked straight at me. "Cindy, sweetheart, maybe baking just isn't your gift. Next time save yourself the trouble and buy S." Daniel never corrected her. Instead, he pushed his plate toward me. Had enough. I bent down, picked up the plate, and forced myself to smile. Of course. I had spent nearly 7 hours preparing dinner after finishing a custom wedding cake that morning. Not one person thanked me. As I reached for the next plate, I noticed my 8-year-old son, Noah. His little hand tightened around his spoon. His eyes never left his father. He wasn't crying. He wasn't scared. He looked disappointed. Then he spoke in a calm voice that instantly silenced the room. "Daddy, I heard everything yesterday." Laughter stopped so abruptly that the ticking kitchen clock suddenly sounded deafening. Daniel's confident smile disappeared. For the first time in years, I watched my husband lose every bit of color in his face. He stared at Noah as if he'd seen a ghost. Daniel asked quietly. Noah didn't answer. He simply kept looking at him. Daniel recovered just enough to force a laugh. "You don't know what you're talking about." Noah lowered his spoon onto the table. Something inside me shifted. This wasn't about dessert anymore. I had lived with Daniel long enough to recognize the difference between irritation and fear. This was fear. The dining room suddenly felt smaller. No one moved. No one reached for another bite. Daniel's mother frowned. What exactly did he hear? Before Noah could open his mouth, Daniel answered for him. Nothing. His reply came too fast, too sharp, too desperate. I looked from my son to my husband. Noah wasn't trying to embarrass anyone. He genuinely looked hurt. Daniel, on the other hand, looked like a man trying to stop a fire before anyone noticed the smoke. That was the moment I realized the cruel joke about my dessert wasn't the biggest thing happening at Not Even Close. For years, Sunday dinners followed the same pattern. Daniel would arrive carrying another story about a successful client or a promotion at work. His parents would beam with pride. His father would slap him on the back. His mother would announce to everyone how lucky I was to have such an accomplished husband. Meanwhile, I quietly carried dishes from the kitchen. I'd refill drinks, serve dinner, clear plates, prepare dessert, smile, and say almost nothing. No one ever asked how my dessert business was growing. No one mentioned the weddings I catered. No one congratulated me when clients left glowing reviews. If someone did bring up my work, Daniel usually answered for me. "It's just a little side business." Or, "It keeps her busy while I'm working." Every compliment directed at me somehow became another compliment for him. I had convinced myself it wasn't worth arguing. Peace felt easier than conflict, especially with Noah watching. That afternoon had been no different. I'd started cooking before sunrise because Daniel insisted everything had to be perfect. Whenever by lunchtime I had roasted chicken, handmade pasta, fresh bread, 3 side dishes, and a layered CHS I'd spent nearly an hour shaping by hand. When everyone arrived, they admired the house. Daniel accepted every compliment. No one realized I had prepared every meal while also finishing a wedding order earlier that morning. I told myself it didn't matter. Seeing everyone enjoy dinner would be enough. Then dessert happened. One sentence erased an entire day's work. Even the dog could do better. The words hurt, the laughter hurt more, but nothing compared to seeing Daniel panic after Noah spoke. I carefully stacked another plate into the sink. Behind me, nobody seemed interested in dessert anymore. Daniel finally cleared his throat. "Noah." His voice was controlled again. "Finish your dinner." "I'm finished," Noah answered. "You heard me." "Finished." Daniel's jaw tightened. My son rarely challenged him. Tonight he wasn't backing down. Daniel's sister glanced between them. "Seriously," she said with an uneasy laugh. "What did he hear?" Daniel shot her a look. "It doesn't matter." "It seems like it does," his father replied. For several long seconds nobody spoke. Daniel reached for his glass of water. His hand shook, just slightly, barely noticeable. But I noticed. After 13 years of marriage, I knew every habit he had. Daniel never shook, not during financial negotiations. Not after car accidents. Not even when Noah broke his expensive laptop 2 years earlier. Yet one sentence from our 8-year-old had rattled him more than anything I'd ever seen. I slowly sat back down instead of returning to the kitchen, for the first time during one of these dinners. I wanted answers more than peace. Noah looked at me briefly. His expression wasn't frightened. It was almost apologetic, as though he knew something I didn't, and somehow wished he didn't. The silence stretched until Daniel abruptly stood from his chair. "We're leaving." His announcement startled everyone. His mother blinked. "But dessert just, we're leaving." His tone wasn't angry anymore, it was urgent. That urgency sent a chill through me. I looked once more at Noah, then back at Daniel. Whatever my son had heard yesterday, it terrified the man who had spent years making everyone else afraid of disappointing him. And for the first time in our marriage, I wondered if I had never really known my husband at all. Daniel barely spoke during the drive home. The only sounds inside the car were the tires humming against the road, and Noah quietly staring out. I kept waiting for Daniel to laugh and say the whole thing had been a misunderstanding. Instead, his fingers gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Halfway home, he finally spoke. What happened back there was unacceptable. I looked at him. "You mean insulting me in front of your family?" "No." His eyes never left the road. "I mean Noah interrupting adult conversations." My stomach tightened. He didn't interrupt anything. He said one sentence. Daniel's jaw clenched. "He embarrassed me." From the back seat, Noah quietly replied, "I only told the truth." Car fell silent again. Daniel slammed on the brakes at a red light harder than necessary. He slowly turned toward our son. "You're 8 years old. You don't understand adult conversations." I understood. "You didn't?" "I heard you." Daniel inhaled sharply. "Enough." Rest of the drive passed without another word, but something had changed. Normally, Daniel dismissed Noah's comments with a lecture and moved on. Tonight, he sounded frightened. As though every word Noah spoke carried the risk of destroying something Daniel desperately wanted. Tea later that evening, after Noah had changed into his pajamas, I found him sitting on his bed reading. I knocked softly. "I come in?" He smiled. "Sure, Mom." I sat beside him. For a moment, I simply brushed his hair away from his forehead. Then I asked gently, "What did you mean when you told Daddy you heard everything yesterday?" Noah hesitated. His eyes dropped to the blanket. Before he could finish, the bedroom door swung open. Daniel stood there. "What are you two talking about?" His voice sounded casual. His eyes didn't. I answered honestly. "I was asking Noah about dinner." Daniel smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. It isn't healthy to make children relive uncomfortable situations. Then he looked at Noah. "Buddy, why don't you get ready for bed? Mom and I need to talk." Noah looked at me uncertainly. I nodded. "It's okay." He climbed off the bed and quietly walked toward the bathroom. As soon as he disappeared into the hallway, Daniel shut the bedroom door. "You need to stop questioning him." I was having a conversation with my son. "You're putting ideas into his head." "No, Daniel." I folded my arms. "I'm trying to understand why one sentence scared you." His expression hardened. "It didn't." It certainly looked like it did. Several seconds neither of us spoke. Finally he shrugged. "Reading too much into it." Then he walked away. He never answered the question. Over the next several days, I couldn't stop replaying moments I'd ignored for years. When I'd wanted to expand my dessert business into full-service wedding catering, Daniel had smiled. Those weekends belonged to the family. When a local restaurant asked whether I could supply pastries every morning, he'd convinced me at "Why, you'll burn yourself out." When I'd talked about hiring an assistant, he'd laughed. "What? It's just baking." At the time, his advice sounded reasonable, supportive, even. Now those conversations echoed differently. Every opportunity I'd celebrated somehow ended with me deciding not to take it. Not because I couldn't, because Daniel always had a reason why I shouldn't. The realization unsettled me more than his insult at dinner. Maybe dessert had never been the real issue. Maybe keeping me small had always been the goal. 3 evenings later, I was frosting cupcakes for a birthday order when Noah wandered into the kitchen. He watched me pipe roses onto vanilla icing. "Those are pretty." "Thank you." He leaned against the counter. "Mom." "Yes." "Why does Daddy always want you to stay small?" The piping bag slipped in my hand. "What did you say?" He repeated it exactly. "Why does Daddy always want you to stay small?" I slowly set the piping bag down. "Where did you hear that?" "I heard Daddy say it." My heartbeat quickened. "He said those words?" Noah nodded. "I think so. Children rarely invent exact phrases, they repeat them. Someone had said those words. And suddenly the fear on Daniel's face at dinner made far more sense. That night, Daniel left to meet a client after work. While carrying folded laundry upstairs, I noticed the light inside his home office had been left on. Normally, I never entered that room without asking. It was his workspace. His rules, his filing cabinets, his desk. But curiosity pushed me across the doorway. The room looked perfectly ordinary: financial reports, family photos, a neat stack of folders. As I turned to leave, something sticking out of the bottom drawer caught my eye: an ivory envelope. Only the corner was visible. I pulled the drawer open. Across the front was a logo I recognized instantly: the luxury hotel chain. Months earlier, they had interviewed me for the position of executive pastry chef. They'd sent one offer. I'd reluctantly declined after Daniel insisted the schedule would ruin our family life. I had never heard from them again, or so I thought. My hands trembled as I pulled the unopened envelope free. It was addressed to me, unopened. I stared at it in disbelief. There had been another letter, another opportunity, another chance I had never even known existed. I reached for the seal. The office light suddenly brightened behind me. I froze. "I was wondering," Daniel said quietly from the doorway, "how long it would take before you started." He stepped inside without taking his eyes off me. He calmly closed the office door behind him. Daniel leaned against the closed office door. His expression was calm, too calm. His eyes settled on the unopened envelope in my hands. "Put that back." Looked from the envelope to him. "It's addressed to me. It's old. Never seen it before." "It doesn't matter." I stared at him. "Matters enough that you kept it locked in your desk." A split second, something flashed across his face. Not guilt, calculation. He crossed the room and held out his hand. "Give it to me." Instead, I turned the envelope over. The postmark was dated just 3 weeks after I declined the original offer. 3 weeks. I slowly looked back at him. They wrote again. Daniel sighed impatiently. "Cindy, you're making something out of nothing." "Then why hide it?" "I didn't hide anything. It was in your locked drawer." "I forgot about it." Answer came too quickly, too smoothly, as though he'd rehearsed it. I searched his face for any sign that he was telling the truth. I couldn't find one. Finally, I placed the envelope back on the desk. "Tired," I said quietly. "We'll talk tomorrow." Daniel picked up the envelope before I could change my mind. "Been under a lot of stress." His voice softened. "You don't need to dwell on old disappointments." I nodded without arguing. But as I walked out of the office, I knew one thing for certain. That envelope had never been forgotten. It had been hidden. The following week, Daniel's parents invited everyone over for another Sunday dinner. Normally, I would have found an excuse not to go. This time, I wanted to watch, not just Daniel, everyone. Dinner unfolded exactly as it always had. Daniel's father proudly announced another successful investment his son had managed. His mother smiled. "Always said Daniel carries this family." His sister laughed. "We're lucky he's so responsible." I quietly passed the vegetables around the table. No one asked how business was going. No one mentioned that I'd spent the morning delivering desserts to 3 different events before come. When I finally sat down, Daniel raised his glass. "Honestly," he joked, "I'm just glad Cindy finally stopped chasing those silly dreams." His sister chuckled. His mother nodded approvingly. "It takes maturity to know when your husband should come first." A week earlier, I would have forced a smile. Tonight, I reached into my purse. Without saying a word, I placed the unopened hotel envelope in the center of the table. The conversation stopped instantly. Everyone looked down at it. Daniel's smile disappeared. His mother frowned. "What's this?" I folded my hands. "I was hopping." Daniel could explain. Daniel laughed. It sounded forced. "Oh. That," he shrugged casually. "Some old paperwork." I looked at him. "It's a job offer addressed to me." His father picked up the envelope. "You never opened it?" "I never received it." Mother looked confused. "I thought the hotel only contacted you once." "So did I." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "Company probably mailed another copy after she'd already declined." "Why was it in your desk?" I asked. "It must have gotten mixed in with my mail." His explanation sounded polished, almost automatic. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then a small voice broke the silence. "I saw that letter before." Everyone turned toward Noah. Daniel's shoulders stiffened. "When?" I asked gently. "A long time ago." Daniel answered before Noah could continue. "He's confused." "I'm not confused," Noah replied quietly. "I saw Daddy holding it." His grandmother blinked. "Daniel." She looked genuinely puzzled. "Remember you telling me they never contacted Cindy again?" Daniel looked at his mother. "You must be remembering wrong." His father slowly lowered the envelope onto the table. The room felt noticeably different now, for the first time. Daniel wasn't controlling the conversation. People were questioning him. Daniel forced another smile. "Cindy, if this is your way of embarrassing me in front of my family, congratulations." I met his eyes. "I'm asking a simple question." "I'm giving you a simple answer." Before I could respond, Noah spoke again. "That's not what happened." His voice was barely above a whisper. Yet everyone heard him. Daniel's head snapped toward our son. Noah. The warning in his voice was unmistakable. Our son swallowed, then slowly pushed his chair back. The legs scraped across the hardwood floor. He stood. Every adult at the table watched him. Noah looked directly at his father. I know why you hid it. Air seemed to leave the room. Daniel's face drained of color. His mother stared at him in disbelief. His father slowly removed his glasses. Nobody said a word. Then Daniel's voice cracked across the dining room. Noah. He pointed firmly toward the chair. Sit down. I said sit down. Noah didn't move. Instead, he took one slow breath. Daniel's voice rose for the first time. Sit down, right now. Dining room fell completely silent. Noah remained standing beside his chair. His small hands trembled, but his voice didn't. Daniel rose halfway from his seat. I told you to sit down. The single word echoed through the room. I had never seen my son refuse his father before. Daniel took a slow breath. Confused. No, Daddy. Noah looked him straight in the eyes. I remember. Daniel's father spoke quietly. Daniel, let him finish. Daniel didn't answer. He simply stared at Noah. It wasn't the look of an angry father correcting his child. It was the look of a man terrified of what might come next. Noah swallowed hard. Last Saturday. He paused. I was feeding Grandpa's dog. Daniel immediately interrupted. You weren't anywhere near the garage. I was. You must have heard someone else. I heard you. Every pair of eyes shifted back to Daniel. Noah continued. You and Grandma didn't know I was outside. His grandmother frowned. Garage, Noah nodded. Door was open a little. Daniel slammed his hand onto the table. That's enough. His father looked at him sharply. No, his voice was firm. Him talk. Daniel slowly sat back down. For the first time in years, his father wasn't taking his side. Noah looked toward me before continuing. Daddy said. He hesitated. If Mommy got the hotel job. His voice became quieter. She wouldn't need him anymore. I felt my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Daniel immediately shook his head. That's not what I said. But Noah kept going. He said. Noah searched for the exact words. As long as she believes she's not good enough, she'll stay. One moved. No one even breathed. Daniel's mother slowly covered her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears. No, she whispered. I remember because I didn't know why Mommy needed to stay small. Phrase hit me like a physical blow. Stay small, the exact words Noah had asked me days earlier. He hadn't imagined them. He'd heard them. Daniel stood so abruptly that his chair toppled backward. He's 8 years old. His voice shook. He's mixing things up. His father stared at him. Did you say those words? No, at me. I said no. Then why are you acting like this? Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed his car keys from the counter. I'm done. He headed toward the front door. Nobody tried to stop him. Nobody defended him. His mother quietly cried into a napkin. His sister looked down at her untouched dinner. His father simply watched his son walk away with an expression I'd never seen before. Disappointment. Deep, unmistakable disappointment. The front door slammed. The sound echoed through the house. An hour later, we returned home. Daniel hadn't come back. His car was gone. The house felt strangely empty. I walked through the kitchen absent-mindedly, trying to process everything Noah had revealed. Then I remembered the envelope. I needed to know whether there had been more. I walked toward Daniel's office. This time I didn't hesitate. The drawer that had once been locked was standing slightly open. Someone had searched through it in a hurry. I opened every folder. Most contained ordinary financial papers. Then I noticed the small trash bin beside the desk. It was overflowing. Not with ordinary garbage, with shredded paper. Something about it made me kneel down. Carefully, I began lifting out the strips, company logos, printed email headers, fragments of sentences. Executive pastry chef. Salary package. Final interview. We hope to hear. My breathing became shallow. These weren't random papers. They were emails, printed emails, one after another, some dated months apart. Some offering interview dates, others asking why I had stopped responding. One mentioned an increased salary. Another invited me to tour the hotel's pastry kitchen. I had never seen any of them, not one. I spread the pieces across Daniel's desk. Even torn apart, the pattern was obvious. This wasn't one hidden letter. It had happened again. And again. And again. Every opportunity I'd believed had simply disappeared. Had been intercepted before it ever reached me. I carefully gathered every shredded page into a large envelope. This wasn't anger anymore. This was evidence. As I sealed the envelope, I heard heavy footsteps upstairs. I froze. Daniel was home. Drawers slammed open. Closet doors banged shut. A suitcase rolled across the bedroom floor. He was packing. I hurried into the hallway. Daniel. He ignored me. I climbed the stairs 2 at a time. When I reached the bedroom doorway, clothes were already piled into an open suitcase. "What are you doing?" Without looking at me, he zipped one side closed. "We both need space." "You're leaving because Noah told the truth?" I said we need space. "You hid years of my career from me." He kept folding shirts. "This isn't the time," I replied, gripping the envelope against my chest. "It finally is." Before either of us could say another word, the doorbell rang, both of us froze. A second ring followed, then a firm knock echoed through the house. Neither of us knew who was standing on the other side. Daniel and I looked at each other for a long second. The doorbell rang again. Neither of us moved. Finally, Daniel grabbed the suitcase and headed downstairs. "Get it?" I followed him, still clutching the envelope filled with shredded documents. When Daniel opened the front door, a uniformed courier stood on the porch. "Daniel Bennett?" "Yes, I have a certified delivery for Cindy Bennett." Courier looked past him until he saw me. "Bennett? That's me." He handed me a large overnight envelope. "Sign here." I signed without taking my eyes off Daniel. His face had gone completely blank. The courier thanked me and walked back to his van. The moment he drove away, I looked at the return address, the Grand Meridian Hotel Group. The same company. My hands trembled as I opened the package. Inside was a formal letter. I read the first paragraph once, then again, tears blurred the words. "What is it?" Daniel asked. I looked up. They reopened the position. Nobody spoke. I continued reading aloud. "Our executive pastry chef remembered your interview and your portfolio. Due to an unexpected vacant for you to accept the position before we begin the letter included a revised salary." It was significantly higher than the original offer. There was also a personal note from the hotel's executive chef. "We never understood why communication suddenly stopped. If circumstances have changed, we would be." I slowly lowered the letter. "They thought I ignored them." Daniel looked away. He couldn't even meet my eyes. At that exact moment, his parents pulled into our driveway. His father stepped out first. His mother followed behind him, her face still swollen from crying. Neither of them had been able to leave the evening the way it had ended. His father looked at the suitcase. "Leaving?" Daniel didn't answer. Instead, I held out the reopened offer. His father quietly read every page. Then he noticed the envelope in my hands. "What's that?" Without a word, I placed the shredded documents on the dining room table. Piece by piece, we began laying them out. His father helped match torn edges together. His mother found email dates. Within half an hour, the picture was unmistakable. There wasn't one hidden opportunity. There were many interview invitations, follow-up emails, salary negotiations, requests to reschedule. Each one had been intercepted before I ever saw it. His father slowly removed his glasses. He looked directly at Daniel. "Tell me I'm wrong." Daniel stared at the floor. "Tell me." Several agonizing seconds passed. Finally, Daniel sat down, his shoulders slumped. I didn't think she'd actually be happier. Room remained silent. I was afraid. His voice barely rose above a whisper. I saw how excited she became after that first interview. He rubbed both hands over his face. "If she got that job..." He stopped. His father finished the sentence for him. "She wouldn't need you anymore." Daniel closed his eyes. "Yes." No one interrupted him. I kept telling myself it was for our family. He laughed bitterly. But it wasn't. He looked at me for the first time all evening. "I was scared you'd realize you deserved better than me." My heart broke, not because of his confession, but because it explained so many years of my life. Every opportunity, every compliment minimized, every dream postponed, every warning that success would ruin our family. None of it had been about protecting our marriage. It had been about protecting his control. Daniel's mother began crying again. "I encouraged you." She covered her face. "When you told me Cindy wanted that hotel job, I said a wife should put her husband first." She turned toward me. "I didn't know. I thought she had made that decision herself. Never knew you kept writing back to them." I quietly nodded. "I didn't know either." Daniel's father stood. His voice was calm, but it carried more disappointment than anger. "I raised you to support your wife." He looked at his son. "Convince her she's too small to leave." Daniel couldn't answer. Then Noah slowly walked into the room. He had been listening from the hallway. He looked at his father. "Daddy?" Daniel immediately knelt. "Sorry, buddy." Noah didn't move closer. "When you laughed at Mom." His voice shook. "I thought maybe husbands were supposed to treat wives like that." Words shattered whatever remained of Daniel's composure. He reached out. Noah stepped back. "I don't want to grow up like that." Instead of taking his father's hand, Noah walked over and hugged me. I wrapped my arms around him. For years I had stayed silent because I believed I was protecting my son. Now I understood something far more important. Children don't learn strength from silence. They learn it from what we refuse to accept. The following morning, I called the Grand Meridian Hotel. The executive chef answered personally. When I accepted the position, he laughed with relief. "We're glad you finally called." Within weeks, I began leading an entire pastry team. For the first time in years, people valued my work instead of dismissing it. During the divorce, the recovered emails and shredded correspondence became evidence that Daniel had opportunities over an extended period. The court took that conduct seriously when dividing our assets. Daniel moved into a small apartment across town. His parents never cut him out of their lives, but they stopped making excuses for him. Instead, they apologized to me repeatedly and worked hard to rebuild a healthy relationship with Noah months later. Noah visited my new kitchen after school. He watched dozens of desserts leave the pass for a luxury banquet. One of the junior chefs smiled at him. "Your mom made all of these." Noah grinned proudly. "I know." That evening, after the last tray left the kitchen, I stood alone for a moment. The smell of chocolate and fresh pastry filled the room. Years earlier, I had believed keeping peace required making myself smaller. Now I understood the truth. Real love never asks you to shrink so someone else can feel taller. The cruelest words spoken over dessert didn't end my life. They exposed the lie I'd been living. And my son's 5 honest words gave me the courage to finally belong.